Hey there, I'm Brad Miller and with Jason Medford today, and we are walking a spiritual path. And I know we've talked about in previous many actually episodes that we've done, we've talked about kind of the idea of feeling energy. We talked about it last episode. Again, I don't know, we're 80 some episodes in at this point, and I'm sure we've talked about it quite a few of those. But I was kind of thinking the other day, we've talked about the idea of feeling energy, but we haven't really talked about what that is. Like, how do you know if you're feeling energy? Obviously, we're all on different places along the path, and some of us are more familiar and like, oh, feeling energy, totally know what that is. I get it. I experience all the time, but I think there's other people out there who are like, I'm not really sure if I'm feeling energy. Like, is it just maybe indigestion? Is it like it's a draft? Like, I don't know what I'm feeling something. Is it me? Like, they just don't know. And so I thought it would be really useful today to kind of talk about what it feels like to feel energy.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, even at least this is my experience and why I'm sharing it this way for the people that may be listening and they're like, oh no, I got it. I understand. I know how that is. Well, the more I grow, the more I learn, the more I'm exposed to higher levels of energy. I'm recognizing a lot of different ways and sometimes new ways that I'm feeling it too. Right. So, I think that's part of our path along is, and maybe some of these things we've been feeling the whole time, we just never
Mhm,
associated it with it being energy, and other things are
mhm,
sometimes, completely new, right? And so I'll give you an example of one where, and we'll go through and talk about. So this is a more I don't know why this is the first one I'm sharing, but anyway, we're going to share a lot of different ones. Okay. But I wear contacts, right? And so sometimes my eyes, I mean, I've worn contacts since I was 10. And so there's some different things about my eyes that I've experienced my whole life, but there's certain things that are newer things that I'm experiencing as well with my eyes. And so one is an example, sitting down, having dinner, and all of a sudden my head kind of jerks back a little bit and my left eye felt like it got poked in the eye, and I was kind of like, whoa. And I looked over at my partner and she's like, you just got hit in the eye, didn't you? I'm like, what do you mean? She said, I saw this energy like just go into your eye. I'm like, uh-huh. Right. So she could actually kind of see it or sense it as well. I definitely felt it. Right. And so that doesn't I don't know. Actually, honestly, I haven't talked to anybody else who's had that experience. Right. And
mhm,
it doesn't mean you're supposed to have that experience. I'm not saying that. It's just one of those new ways that I sometimes experience or feel energy,
mhm,
right? But they come in all different kinds of ways, right? I mean, how are some of the ways that you
mhm.
feel energy?
Well, I don't think I can say that have a sharp poke of energy in my eyeball. Um,
You don't get the
which is
electric shocks in your body either. And we won't
um
even really talk about that one, but yeah,
well,
I
but
have
I
some
mean,
different things happening to me.
yeah, but I know earlier actually today I felt kind of all of a sudden a sharp stiffness in kind of my upper shoulder, and I was just sitting straight. I wasn't moving or doing else, and all of a sudden I just go like ooh, and kind of felt like kind of a cringe and kind of worked it out, and its sense has gone away.
Yep.
Um, and so I'm like, if I was like pulling on something or I was like some reason that it makes sense that it's happened, like that would be one thing, like I pulled a muscle or whatever. But like I was just sitting there and all of a sudden it just hit me. Um, and so that's again kind of one, like you said, different forms of energy. That's one, I think one kind of form of energy is just kind of a random body ache, pain, or sensation that we might feel that's kind of hits it and then just is gone. Like that's kind of the extent of it. Something was shooting around and hit you, and now it's done for. And I get that sometimes too. Again, not in the eyeball necessarily, but other places sometimes that
Yeah.
happens. Um,
Well, and I think maybe before we get too far too, that
mhm,
it's probably good for people to, as we're talking today, think of this in kind of two major categories. One of feeling energy or feeling kind of the intuition side of it, which might be different and some confirmations that we'll talk about, but also just feeling the energy that's flowing through you. Because whether you realize it or not, there's energy being bombarded on the earth that we're picking up on.
mhm,
And because of that, as you move up, as you elevate, as you raise your consciousness level, you're more sensitive to and feel these things, because until your body is used to it, right? Until your body and your physical body and your light body have upgraded, it kind of feels like you got hit by a truck sometimes because you're not really used to it. And so, again, there's nothing wrong with it. These are things that normally happen. Some people call them ascension flu or, symptoms like that. And and one thing to always keep in mind is when these random things come up, like Brad just explained, he's sitting there, he's not doing anything, he's not even moving,
mhm,
and all of a sudden something in his back, he starts to feel some dis-ease or some uncomfortable feelings, not necessarily pain, but just something that's different, right?
mhm,
That has nothing to do with his physical movement. So it's nothing from a trauma perspective that was wrong. It's just energy. And so just relax, right? Don't give in to fear like, oh my gosh, I got to go to the doctor now, blah, 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 right? It's
mhm,
probably not that if there's no direct connection or causation. Same thing when I wake up in the morning and my left knee feels like I twisted it. I've been sleeping all night. I didn't twist my knee in the bed.
But what were you doing during dream time?
Well, that's another episode, right?
Yeah.
But usually when I wake up like that and I feel like I've been hit by a truck, it's because I was doing things in dream time that
Mhm,
affected my physical body. And that's normal for me. Every day I wake up, I am tired, and some part of me doesn't feel quite right for the first hour or so that I wake up. And that's just normal. That's my life now. Um, but so like I said, these things kind of happen, and so these discomfort kind of symptoms, headaches,
mhm,
all of a sudden feeling a hot flash. There's a whole bunch of different ones that we might get into. This is kind of that one category of you're just feeling the energy that you're getting bombarded with versus kind of feeling from an intuition side, like the universe is, I mean, the universe is talking to you with the other ones too. It's just usually like slamming you with high voltage. And so it's not quite the same as the intuition, or maybe it is. But I thought it was maybe important to kind of
mhm.
distinguish those two.
Yeah. Again, at the end of the day, I think anything examples of what it might feel like are beneficial because people are going to feel them in different ways and different things to different extents. Like you said, the more I think you walk along the path, the more likely you are to experience these things because you're starting to raise your frequencies. You're starting to become more sensitive to some of these higher frequency things that impact you. Or you're starting to feel the lower frequency stuff impact you now because you are at a significantly higher frequency than you had been that they are. So I think whether it's one or two, I don't know. I was trying to think of like my examples, like which category did I fit into, and at the end of the day, it
Well, and
doesn't really
again, it's like
matter.
I probably got too analytical on that, because
That's right,
as I was
overthinking
talking
it.
through it, it's like, honestly, both of them are that way. It's just usually when we get hit so hard like that, a lot of times we don't consciously know what the codings are that are
Mhm.
coming in, but eventually we will. and so they just show up in different ways. But yeah, so maybe we just kind of, like I said, again, it's not. But whether you're feeling these or not feeling these, or you're feeling some or you're not feeling any, don't make any meaning on it either, because
Mhm.
each of us feels different, right? Like I get shocked. Okay. I don't know anybody else who has at least told me that they have this, but there are times when I will jerk and it's like somebody just poked me with one of those 10,000 volt self-defense things in certain parts of my body. It's quick. Sometimes it actually makes me jerk.
Mhm.
Um, but that's one way I feel it,
Mhm.
right? Headaches, nausea, sometimes diarrhea for no apparent reason for a short period of time, right? Um, Sometimes I have some issues with my balance. I have to be careful how I walk. In fact, I bought old-fashioned solid work boots that I wear when I go out of the house now, not just tennis shoes that have the wobbly kind of feel to them, right? I have to feel more square planted on the ground because there's times when I get dizzy or I get a little wobbly in how I walk. And so physically, I have to now make sure that I'm in more sturdy shoes that don't have the ability to really roll like that to
Mhm.
help me stay upright. You know, sometimes when I'm walking along, I'm just kind of walking along, and all of a sudden, I go up on my toes and I lean forward and I almost fall over. I don't know why, right?
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I've shared a few. Brad,
Yeah.
what's going on with you? And then I'll keep going
No,
too. But
no, I mean some of the most recent ones I mean, we're just coming down off of the full moon.
Mhm,
And I know there's always jokes about, how people get kind of crazy on the full moon and all that kind of stuff like that. But particularly this one, um, it just things felt a little bit more chaotic. I know that in the last episode talked about an experience at the grocery store where things were just a little more chaotic than normal. And it wasn't that there was a lot of people in the store even. It was kind of a light day because it was in the middle of the afternoon on a weekday, but just things just kind of felt kind of chaotic. That's the best way I can explain it. The word that comes to mind is just they're just kind of chaotic and not organized. Like, I don't know, and it's hard. And I think we're gonna run into this problem is sometimes it's hard to explain and describe some of these things because it kind of goes beyond words. Like we don't really have a word for some of these concepts that we're experiencing. So we're trying to fumble through what's the closest thing I can think of. And the closest thing I can think of is for this was chaotic. Like things were just kind of like this. For those of you who are on the YouTube, you can see me shaking my hands, kind of crazy that way. Um, Sometimes I feel heavy,
mhm,
like something there's just kind of like pressure down, or like the air is thick for some reason. Sometimes it makes me feel tired because of that. I feel like I'm kind of holding up against it. My motivation kind of goes sometimes because of that, and I just kind of want to just lay in bed. I'm like, I just don't want to deal with anything, or I'll sit on the couch. I don't have to think. I don't want to have to do a lot of stuff. Those are some of the smaller, like, smaller, but kind of the more physical kind of stuff that I feel. But sometimes it's more energy related when I go into rooms, particularly or different or spaces.
mhm,
And I know I've talked about some of these I've experienced in the past on other episodes. But sometimes, like I remember one of the first crystal shops I went into, I was walking around and all of a sudden I started feeling warm. I was like having a hot flash in a specific spot. Like other places it was fine, but just that one spot I just felt really warm. And my attention was directed to a particular crystal that I ended up getting when I was there. I've had things like that before. I've been in a crystal shop where, oh, I just felt overwhelmed. Like, not just like a little bit, like, it just kind of felt warm, but like I had to like physically leave the space because I just felt like overwhelmed, like hot and just kind of oppressive. And as soon as I walked out the door, whew, breath, like a breath of fresh air, and it was fine again. And so sometimes I'll feel that, and this is something that I've become more aware of, that being able to feel some of these things than in the past. Um, and I can now attribute it, I think, more towards energy related stuff. Where in the past I might just shrug it off or not really sure. So the one thing that comes into mind is there was a particular brand of grocery store. We're always talking about grocery stores. I don't know what it is about
Oh,
grocery stores, but
it's about the only place I go when I get out of the house.
but there was, a particular brand of grocery store, and whenever I'd go into one of these grocery stores of this brand, I just felt weird. Like I didn't want to be in there. Like I didn't really want to shop. I didn't want to buy things. I just wanted to kind of grab and go and get out of there. Versus some other shopping centers where I was fine. I'd go in there and I was like, okay, do and do my shopping, and didn't for whatever. And in the past, I would always blame it on the design of the store, the colors they used. They use like yellow sale tags or something. And so I was always trying to say, well, maybe it was just the way that colors they used, or something in there just kind of off for me, or whatever. But as I've gone on, I'm like, well, yeah, maybe it was some of the colors and designs, but I think it's more energy. There's some energetic stuff here going on in this places that's really causing it. Because otherwise, why would it be every time I go into most of these stores, I feel this way? And some stores are more than others. Some are less. So why is it that's causing, and again, that's something that I've again become more aware of. And I think that's part of this episode, part of the game here is just becoming aware of these things and being like, huh, that's interesting. I wonder if that had some sort of energetic thing behind it.
Mhm. Well, and I think it's, because again, we're talking about some of the energy coming from the universe hitting us like that, but it's also other people and places and things too, which I think is important as well. And one thing that I've started
Yep.
learning more is not listen to the words, but listen to the energy behind it. I think we might have talked about this before, but and I think some ways, like I said, it's hard to sometimes put it in words. And sometimes you almost have to kind of talk with somebody else who's experienced the same thing,
Mhm.
just to be able to kind of put words on it. And even still, it sometimes doesn't make sense, right? Like there was some interaction that my partner and I had with a couple of people, and the energy was just off about these people. In some of the things that they were doing, physically, the way the tone of their voice, the other stuff, something was just kind of weird, and it was hard for us to kind of. We knew we didn't like the energy that was coming from there, but we didn't know how to explain it, and us talking about it afterwards. I mean, the only and again, this probably doesn't make sense to anybody else, but as we're trying to put words on it, the only words that we could kind of use to explain it was like it felt like a cold, wet toad. Which again is like, what is it? I don't know, but it makes sense to me,
Mhm.
right? But that these people were giving off a cold, wet toad energy, and it was just something that didn't resonate with us. We don't want to be around it. One of the people in particular, it's like he's like Lenny from Of Mice and Men. And so if you've ever read Mice
Mhm.
and Men, there's the
Mhm.
Lenny character in Of Mice and Men. And it's like, I never would have necessarily put it that way, but it makes sense to me and it made sense to my partner as we were talking
Mhm.
about it. Right. And like you said, it doesn't, So we were feeling the energy that they were throwing our way as well. And I think, sometimes maybe if we kind of equate it back to emotions somewhat too, right? Like we all kind of know what it feels like to feel sad, or what we describe
Mm-hmm.
as sad. And sad, we would say, is maybe an emotion, but it's also a vibration and a frequency, which means it's energy as well. Right. So you can feel sad energy, you can feel angry energy, you can feel vain energy, right? Like sometimes when I talk to people, I can see that what they're saying, you can't just take the words, because there's vanity behind the words. So the words don't mean anything, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I can feel vanity from them when they're talking to me. And it's like, no, I don't want to feel that.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so we start to pick up on it, just like Brad was talking about the grocery store. It's the same thing. There was some chaos going on in there, that chaotic, frenzied, anxious kind of feeling. I mean, those are words that we usually use to describe places like
Mm-hmm.
that. And like I said, there's I don't know, 5 different grocery stores in our area here. And I think, one we would kind of describe as frenzied and spiritually distorted, meaning there's a bunch of tourists that are there, but there's also a bunch of people who are new agey spiritual, that are kind of distorted and twisted and feel like they're better than everybody. It's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
weird combination. One of them feels sad and rough. It feels depressive when you go in there, but it
Mm-hmm.
also has if you think about like miners and cowboys and that just kind of rough, manly kind of energy to it too.
Mm-hmm.
One kind of feels just more fast paced, frenzied, right? Another one feels a little bit more relaxed, but a little bit sad maybe too, but not as
Mm-hmm.
much, right?
Yep.
One feels the vibe of the store itself, of most of the employees, is chill, is calm. There's a few of the employees that are not, and there's some of the clientele who are not,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so again, it's like, well, that we're feeling the energy from each of these places and each of these people as well.
Mm-hmm.
And some ways to describe it is maybe think in terms of the emotions, even though it doesn't quite accurately capture it.
Right. Yeah. No, I've got the same thing with grocery stores here. I've got one that I used to go to before we moved here. So when I lived in the city, I went to one of these and I loved it, and that's the one I went to all the time. The one here though is very sad. It is
Same branded grocery store, but
same
just
brand of
different
grocery
location.
store, yeah. But there's rarely there's very few people that go in it, and my wife and I were like surprised that it's still open. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a chain, so it's not like it's a little mom and whatever. But like, there's rarely anyone there. Like the parking lot's mostly empty, and it just you walk through it and it's sad. They have gotten rid of most of the cashiers, so pretty much everything is self checkout, and it's just it's a little dimmer in the store light wise, and it just the very sad vibe comes across. Then there's this other one which has three brand has three locations. The one the best thing that my wife and I can come up with is it feels kind of ghetto,
Mhm.
but it's not in the ghetto. Like there's no ghetto here, but that's kind of the feeling that we get. It just feels kind of we talked about kind of rough and urbanish, but not in an urban area. It's really bizarre, but I try to avoid it whenever I can. I just don't like it in there at all. If I have to go in, for one thing, I'm going to get in and get out real fast. I just don't like it. The one I was in yesterday is more of the kind of fast paced, a little chaotic sort of deal. But it has the best selection. It has, so a lot of the things I can get, like organic and stuff like that, the only place I can find it is there.
Mhm.
So to get that kind of stuff, I kind of have to go. And then the other one, which I would used to go to all the time, they have a lot more limited range, a limited selection of stuff, is a lot more relaxed. It's kind of a homesy kind of a feel.
Mhm.
It felt more organized. It's a lot easier to find things there. Like I can easily just go up and down an aisle and get what I want, and without any problems. Um, it just seemed more relaxed atmosphere in general. So I like that one a lot better, but the selection is a lot more limited. It's a much smaller store, so a lot of stuff I want to get I can't find there. So it's ironic how that works. Like you said, that it's the same brand on three of those stores, and all three stores have a completely different feel,
Mhm.
and that impacts whether or not I want to go into them.
Yeah, and I think too, I think with this, right, we're trying to help people understand some of the different ways that you can feel energy. But I think this discussion in particular, it's important, but some people might be sitting there going, well, why are you talking about this? Who cares which grocery store you go to, right? But whenever we hang around, there's a sympathetic resonance, right? And
Mhm.
so if you have two tuning forks and you hit one, the other one will start vibrating, right? If they're both the same
Yep.
frequency,
Mhm.
sympathetic resonance. And so as humans, we do the same thing. We resonate similar to um, what's around us in our surroundings, our epigenetics, right? And so, whether you realize it or not, you're affected when you're hanging out in a frenzied place for a long
Mhm.
period of time. You can think
Yep.
you're strong, you can do all the protection things that you want to do, but the reality is if you hang out there long enough, you're
Mhm.
going to pick up on and you're going to start resonating with that frequency of energy.
Yep.
And so either you get in, you get out as protected as you can be, you go to the other place that has limited selection. I mean, you just have to decide. And I'm sure, like I said, each
Yep.
time you go, you kind of decide different based on how
Yep.
you're feeling or
Exactly.
what you need to do.
Yep.
And okay, if you pick up some energy, you clear it, right? We just talked about
Right.
grounding on last episode, and we've talked about some different ways to clean energy and breathe and
Mhm.
do some of the other stuff. Um, but I think it helps as we can start to sort of name the feelings and name that feeling or energy that we're feeling. Because I told that example about the group of people and the one person who's kind of like Lenny, and this is a person that I've known for a long time, and certain things that from a karmic and experience level I've had to release and work through things from this relationship over many years. And I could never quite understand this person's behavior or even recognize how it was impacting me until I really got more clear on the energy these people are putting off.
Mhm.
And when I got more clear about that, it's like, well, I don't want to be around that. Right.
Mhm.
So those people now are very arm's length in to me. Now I'm
Mhm.
still going to have to interact with them periodically, right? Because of who they are, but very arm's length. I'm not going there if I don't have to.
Mhm.
But it also helps me kind of understand and kind of clean myself, clear myself from some of these karmic things and retrain myself on it's not my fault. This person was trying to make me feel bad because of this reason, and that's why they were hitting me with this energy my whole life. And whether they realize it or not doesn't matter.
Mhm.
What matters is when I finally recognize it and see it for what it is, and I do something about it to clean up, to shovel my shit in my life and take care of it, right?
Mhm.
And I think sometimes that's why, feeling the actually feeling the energy behind it is so important. And it's really opened my eyes as I've learned to tap into that more,
Mhm.
in how I'm feeling the energy of others, but also in my intention and the feeling that I am putting out
Mhm.
in what I'm saying or in what I'm doing, right? Because I don't even have to say anything. People that are uh, sensitive to energy can feel without me ever even saying or doing anything if I have my intention in the right way. And so I think it's helpful both in understanding our interactions with other people, but also in how we show up in the world as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point that there are some that are sensitive, and I think that helps us maybe be a little more aware of it. But the energy at the end of the day is affecting everybody, even
Mhm.
if you're not aware it is.
Mhm.
So the energy that you're putting out is impacting those around you, even if they can't tell it that they're being affected by it. Kind of like the for the grocery store that I used to go to, the chain that I was like, I just feel weird going in this. I didn't know why, and it wasn't that I could say it was energy, but just something made me not want to go in that store, in any of
Mhm.
those stores. The people around you, they're feeling what you're putting out, and vice versa, you're feeling what they're putting out. So you
Mhm.
may not be aware that it's happening, especially if you are maybe just starting on the path or you're not sensitive to some of these energies. You may not realize that they're putting out the negative stuff at you, but you're being impacted by it. And you get home and you feel like all crappy, and you're like, why do I feel crappy? Like what happened? I just was hanging out with so and so, and all of a sudden I come home and I'm feeling like shit. Like what happened?
Yep.
You don't realize it's because you got the energy that they were putting out, and that's turned you now into that frequency that they were feeling.
Yeah. So then, again, once you're aware, do something to clean it up,
Right.
right? We've
Hmm.
talked about different grounding techniques, different ways to clean yourself, even just putting attention on it, releasing,
Hmm.
whatever it is, replacing it with something else.
Yep.
And then just really writing yourself in a way. And like I said, now that I'm in a relationship with somebody who does feel so much more than anyone I've ever been with, I have really had to up level my game, um, and always be checking in with myself on what is really my intention? What energy am I putting off when I say these things or when I do things or when because I don't even have to say anything and my energy can change, one way or the other. And
Hmm.
so, I think that's a really big part of the spiritual path most people don't really talk about. It's like om on the pillow, but it's like, no, how do you say I love you? Right. And I'll give you an example, right? Some people just say, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you without much regard, right? There's
Hmm.
some people who kind of overuse it, and you can kind of feel when people don't mean it when they say it. That's
Hmm.
part of the feeling. And there's one person again, and people pop into my head when I'm talking about things like this. So one person in particular, no names or not much details to protect the guilty, um, uses that a lot. But it's always, oh, I love you. I love you. Kind of a thing. And the energy behind it is charlatanistic
Mhm.
because the person says the right things to draw people to them so this person can manipulate and control that person.
Mhm.
It's almost like they're a leech, a bloodsucker, a vampire that use words for to
Mhm.
unsuspecting people who can't feel the energy behind it and kind of pull them into the spider's web and suck them
Mhm.
dry. But
So we're talking about
again,
politics here for some reason. Oh.
no, actually, this is a real life person that I
No,
know.
but yeah, no, but yeah.
And yet, if you would ask most people, oh, this person is such a beautiful, kind person,
Mhm.
but I can see the energy behind it, and they are absolutely not. um, there's other people that when they say, I love you, they mean it, and you can feel it.
Mhm.
And you want to start crying sometimes when they say it because you know how deep it is. Same words, different energy.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
That's why energy is so powerful and so
Mhm.
important.
Everything is energy, everything has energy, and it's all about energy. The physical form doesn't matter, it's the energy behind it. It doesn't matter the words you use, it doesn't matter what you do. What matters is the energy behind it because it affects you, it affects the people directly next to you, it affects everybody on this whole planet and everybody in the whole universe because our energy is not local. So, what we do here can literally be felt 2 or 3 universes away. And I know that's hard to understand and believe, but that's physics too. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know why we got on that tangent. So Brad pulling me back.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's we go where it takes us,
Mhm.
and that's what needed to come out. So,
Yeah, and that's why I think it's, for each person, just start feeling more and learn how you feel this energy. Again, whether it's in different body sensations, and sometimes it is. So I'll give you an example. It's an idiom that we have in English, right? I have a sick feeling in my stomach. Okay.
mhm.
I'm sure you've met people who, when you are in their proximity or when they start talking, you feel nauseous in your stomach. It's your body trying to tell you something about that person's energy. You're sensing their energy and it's making you feel sick to your stomach, right? So as you can start to, get more in touch with that and then start actually, identifying it, working through it, letting it go, transmuting it into something else, um, it's a hugely valuable um, skill for us to develop because you're all doing it. I'm doing it, but we're just not as in tune to it or sensitized to it as we could be because it takes practice to do it.
Mhm. Well, and this I think is going to lead to a new episode, about once you can become aware of of that energy, how can you then use that energy, use your knowledge of the
Mm.
energy. So, for instance, how can you use your knowledge of energy to create a space that feels good for you, that allows you to be at your best, that allows you to concentrate or rest or whatever it is that you may be using the space for? That's
Yeah,
kind
and
of where.
even I think this is like you said, so we'll add this to the list, and at some point on the day that it comes to us that we're supposed to record it, we will. And
Mhm,
even I guess kind of to that point is how do you transmute the energy sent your way? So if somebody comes at you with anger, how can you transmute that to something else and maybe even have the intention of helping the other person change their vibration and frequency and help move them out of anger? And it's not that we're social workers and you want to go, jump into the ghetto, if you will, and save everybody there. But there's ways that you can kind of do some of that. And if the other person's receptive, it'll actually help them. Or, nope, just walk away. Right. um,
mhm,
because that is both for ourselves, cleansing, transmuting for ourselves, but how can we even transmute it in maybe that situation that we're in as well, and hopefully help the other person if they want to be helped? Because that's the caveat is
mhm.
you can't force anything, you can't make anybody do anything against their will, but for those people who are willing, what we can do to help change that.
Yep.
But that's another episode. So y'all got to come back and listen again.
Right. And see if we decide that we're going to talk about that,
Uh-huh.
or if it goes on the list of things that we said we'll talk about and just never have.
Yeah.
Because that's
Maybe it'll be
another.
a year from now. Maybe it'll be next time we record. We don't know.
We don't know. You don't know. No one knows. The universe knows, but you know,
But when we feel that it's time to record that episode, we're going to do it.
there you go.
Mhm. Mhm.
Exactly. And with that, I feel that it's time to wrap up this episode and move around along. Um,
Yep.
so again, there's a lot of different ways that energy can be felt. It's everywhere. It's all around us. We are energy. Um, the energies around can impact us physically. We can feel physical sensations. We can have emotional responses, sad, disgust, anger. We can have mental reactions, intellectual, where we start, having thoughts of, well, that person seems like they're lying to me, or that person doesn't seem like that they are such a great person. Like it can come many different ways. The key is just trying to focus on it, try to be aware of it. Um, because once you start becoming aware of it, then you can start protecting yourself against it. You can start cleansing it when you start feeling it. You can start using it and also transmuting it. But it all starts from kind of that awareness to begin with of what's going on around you. And you may not be feeling it now, and you may be like, "What's wrong with me? Why I'm not feeling this stuff?" Nothing's wrong with you. As we said, different people feel things different ways. And maybe you will feel it down the road. Maybe you're just not there yet. Maybe it's just not your time.
Mhm.
But
Well, and it's okay. I think one of the tricks on the path that I am guilty of a lot of times is if I don't experience some things the same way that other people do, sometimes I feel like I'm behind
right. Hmm.
or I don't deserve to be there. But that's not true. That's my Tanal trying to tell me that. And so I'm working harder and harder on it to realize that no, I just do things in a different way because I'm unique. Brad's
Hmm.
unique. You're unique, right? Some of the same things work for all of us, but we all do things in a slightly different way. We're just here to kind of explain what works for us, some things we've been taught, and see if that works for you. But ultimately, we all got to figure this out together. And sometimes hearing from others, talking with other people is a way
Yep.
for us to help process it. Because, like I said, I never would have said cold, wet toad and Lenny as describing this group of people.
Hmm.
I on my own, I never would have done that, and my partner wouldn't either. But when we talked about it over the course of a couple of conversations, it became
Hmm.
clear. And when those terms came out, we're both like, aha, yeah,
There you go. Hmm.
right. So, yeah, and I think that's about all I got to say about that. My little Forrest Gump.
I doubt that's the case. I'm sure there's probably a lot more you could say about that, but that's where we're going to end up right now. The,
That's
the
where we're
hook's
going to
coming
end
out
today.
to pull you off the stage. So, with that, hopefully you guys enjoy this episode. Have a great week in the meantime, and we will catch you on the next episode.
All right, see you. Thanks, everybody.